It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and you're tuned into Everything I Touch, I Destroy. You know my name, and you know where we are. Rhode Island. We got Mark and Ed tonight. Stay tuned. For now, we're going to play this video. The Plot That Failed by To Live and Shave in LA. R.I.P. Tom Smith.
So every time you read a few lines, look down.
Okay.
All right? Okay. A little louder, please. And just keep doing it that way.
I get through this in one piece.
Tom, I'll murder you.
The bed, black pudding, blood on the sheets. Sliced to ribbons, to shrieks.
Public fail barricaded itself. Servant block pulled up the house. Russian spaces of the city. Little family conspiracy. He helps sustain the story. Riddler was a mad doctor. Fraudulent musical comedy. Raises marvelous energy. To play the trials around on the fearful necks around the organism of the dog, a danger confined to the home. Gender unpacked itself, became a favorite of the press. Masculine culture stops a pen, plot fails as it began. Described as monstrous child, found fantasy and buried in highway. When I felt they broke down the door, Bob was suddenly overwhelmed. A strange life wanted to entrench, prescriptive and intent. Food burned without second sight, and was never scrutinized. First suicide unrehearsed. No one in the house seems to mind. The plot devil is a lion. Condemn themselves to continents. Blame down, forget your friends. The plot concealed the name of author. Full of living the name of meal. Teeth plot devour itself. Makes it stir on ventilator's tap. Criticism of phenomenal depth. Plot contrived the sentiment. Having lived for down one's throat. Submit to photographic crop. Little media had to find. Had to go into qualifying.
Thanks for everything. Now, welcome to the show, the homie Mark Moreno. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on. This is sick.
Yeah, dude, no problem at all. It's my supreme pleasure. So, I know you mostly from following you from Twitter, to be perfectly honest. And I do get a big kick out of your tweets. It's like watching somebody slam dance in a sense, because your enthusiasm is just absolutely transparent. Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship to social media?
I feel like Twitter is the place where I have my own most unhinged thoughts and opinions on like stuff. So I just like end up like, I don't know, like whatever comes up in my head that just like seems weird or funny, I just tweet it or something.
Yeah, no doubt. On the go, you're ready to just fire off your thoughts with
Yeah.
zero filter. Pretty sweet. And you do tend to talk about hardcore music recordings mostly, and performances and shows that you attend. What's up with the world of hardcore punk rock, man? I really have zero connection to it. And, you know, I think what we could try to engender tonight is a sort of connection between the weird and the wild in the alternative spheres of personal expression.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's up with hardcore?
It's fun and just, I mean, for me, I like more experimental forms of music too, but I feel like hardcore is just like it's more accessible and like and just it's more based on emotion rather than just like pure experimentation. But I generally like music that's like mostly based out of like raw emotion.
Yeah, man. And what do you think about, you know, the difference between experience and like referencing experience, like through mediated, you know, media, like records and tapes and stuff?
Like compared to like recordings to like live experiences.
Yeah, like living versus telling a story.
Yeah.
Or singing versus telling a story, or telling a story versus doing something.
Like where you get all these like little nuances and like little things that'll happen at a show you'll remember, and like, oh, someone stage dove off like a balcony or something, or like or like or like someone like just they did like a really special cover, or like, oh, some brawl or fight happened, or just all these like random experiences you'll like see at a show that like you don't really experience like on record, on like a record. It's just power of live music.
Wow, violence in the scene, that seems pretty extreme. Is that something that you come across like on the reg?
Not too often, but um I'd like it not to be happening too often anyways, but it doesn't happen too often. But
Yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Is like you're referencing the aggression and you're referencing the extreme mentalities and emotional situations in the music, right? The extremities of these kinds of things. But to actually, and then you're also, is it still like a pretty common to be moshing and slam dancing and stage diving at a hardcore concert?
Yeah, for sure.
Sick, yeah. Yeah, let's talk about covers, man, because you do mention them a lot on your Twitter account. Is there something, let's like try to crack the code for me. Like, let's start broadly and then maybe zero in greater detail. Like, what is it about the world of covers that you find exciting and holds your interest, like it captivates you in that way?
I feel like covers get the biggest reaction out of like any song. Like if you don't have material that's like very well known by like the general public, you can like play a cover and then people will go off if it's like if you play like a SSD controlled cover or a minor threat cover or a negative approach cover, just people will go off like regardless of how big you are as a band usually.
Yeah, the instant recognition, people just start to go fucking wild. Hell yeah. Is there a lot of crossover with metal these days with the hardcore scene?
Oh, I think so, yeah. I'm not really the hugest fan of metal because I don't know, like the shows aren't really as fun. It's like it's heavy music where you just stand there, and I like moving around. I mean, sometimes I do listen to music on my own time, like just like not at a show, but like I find punk and hardcore shows more fun than metal shows. But there are bands that like mix like black metal and punk, and like I remember there's bands like Bone All, and Raspberry Bulbs, and what's the other one? Iljarn might count too.
A sort of hybrid style.
Yeah. Scrawl and Providence for sure.
Yeah, black metal. Hell yeah. What do you think? Is there like a crossover between metal and hardcore fashion right now at all? The way people dress?
Kind of like you see like from what I've seen I go to shows in Boston too, and I like see there's a lot of punks that have like a sort of like metal punks kind of thing where like they're into like the like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden type stuff, and also like Crust and DB.
Word,
Like,
yeah.
and then there's like bands back in the day that were like a mix of both traditional metal and punk and hardcore, like Sacrilege and Amoebics and who else? Anti-Sect. Mostly in the UK. Like Bolt Thrower also had like crossover appeal with the punks too.
Why do you think that is?
I think they might have been the same. They might have came from the same town as Discharge, Stuck on Trent, but I could be wrong. But I think they played shows together, and also Napalm Death and stuff. And Napalm Death has had crossover with punk and hardcore since their inception.
Yeah. What about like literature? Like, do people still write zines and distribute DIY published writings of their own?
Oh yeah. I my first zine was actually was on like Australian punk and hardcore. At the time was like I think it was the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. I was getting into a lot of Australian punk and hardcore, and I wanted to make a zine about it because it's kind of like not really well known in the States other than like Total Control and Eddie Current Suppression Ring were I guess you'd say like the bigger acts from Australia. But other than that, they don't really get much attention in the States, those bands in that scene.
How did you find yourself getting torn or attracted to their gravitational center?
I think it might have been I like rediscovered this old band, Oily Boys. They're like a hardcore band from Sydney, Australia. And I like went down a rabbit hole. There's this like channel on YouTube called Harakiri Diot that they put a lot of post-punk and punk and hardcore from Australia, sometimes industrial and noise too. And it's a good channel, like very varied in terms of like music. And it's sort of Australia centric too. So
let's talk about something a little closer to home, the Providence hardcore and punk scene. How would you characterize it briefly, and then maybe we'll try to elucidate like further.
As of right now, it's like it's a lot of young kids like 18, 19-year-olds starting their first bands and booking their own shows. And I think it's like when the pandemic started, it kind of really hurt the scene, and it's starting to creep up and get a little like stronger, like with newer kids getting into the scene and starting bands. Like the older generation has kind of like stagnated, but the newer generation has sort of started to like really take hold of their own of the scene and have a fresh start in a sense.
Have you given much thought to that sort of like torch bearing / passing of the baton phenomena that happens in like the punk scene through the decades?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Um, it's good in a sense, like it just it breathes fresh blood into the scene, and sometimes like it gets tiring to see like the same bands over and over again, and uh and sometimes people like run out of steam, and like eventually people need to like pass the baton to people with more energy and time to like invest into the scene.
Some fresh faces and new
Yeah.
blood. You got a message from Brazil, from Rach. They say that they love you and they want you to come to Brazil. It's incredibly romantic and beautiful.
So
I'm
friend
gonna.
Rachel from Austin.
Oh,
Yeah.
Austin, Brazil.
Austin, Brazil.
It's lovely this time of year. Folks, I'm addressing the audience directly now. I'm putting a QR code on the screen. You can scan it with your telephone. This will bring you into the back room of Everything I Ask I Enjoy, where the lovely Claire will direct you onto the front-facing stage of the program, and you'll be able to address me or my guest, Mark Moreno, at your leisure. Yeah, what about fashion and hardcore do you find like exciting, like bullet belts and boots? Is there anything that you just like feel like really says something about like who you are and like how you want to be in the world, that in the clothing?
I don't know, just it feels kind of badass. I don't know, like I like wearing like studs and chains and like denim jackets, and I like how like people like sort of like DIY their like fashion. It's like a very it's like a it like it reflects the DIY nature of the music, and like I have like a I just got a denim jacket from my friend Sam from Boston. He he did like chain stitched the logo of the band Crucifix onto the back of the denim jacket, and he like put like little like flame stitching on like the right hand sleeve. And
We just got a question in the chat. Mark, you have a cool illustration style for band logos and album art. Would you please speak to it?
Yeah, it's like I sort of like it's sort of like cartoonish style. Like there's this dude who's originally from Chicago but now lives in Western Mass. His name's Augie. Um, for some reason I'm forgetting his handle, but he on Instagram, but he has that like cartoonish style that sort of inspired me to draw in that exact style. Um, and it's I don't know, just it looks cool.
Hell yeah. Once again, folks, if you want to drop a message in the chats, you can go ahead and ask questions and interact with my guest. And you can even text me if you prefer, if you know my phone number. Yeah, Massachusetts, let's talk about that. Is there a lot of cross-pollination between Western Mass, Boston, Providence, and Connecticut bands currently?
Not so much as Western Mass, a little bit in Boston, but I'm trying to like make it like the scene, the connections between Boston and Providence stronger. Like I have a show coming up in the future. It's not announced yet, but it's like a mix of like Boston, Connecticut, and Rhode Island punk hardcore bands on the same bill. Um, and I remember like the best shows I've been to in Providence were like shows where there were like bands from other scenes coming together into like one show in Providence, because you get kids from like all over coming.
People from different walks of life.
Yeah, for sure.
Interacting. When I was young, it did seem like things were more like that. And it was like a typical scenario that you'd find drop dead on a bill with Arab on Radar or some other kind of hodgepodge of just people who are around causing trouble.
Yeah.
And I hope that this interview can somehow move the hands of time back towards that scenario for everyone to enjoy. Perhaps. Because that would be cool. I love when ideas mix.
Yeah.
And get messy.
Mm-hmm.
Do people follow rules like more so than break rules in punk and hardcore?
For the most part, I know that people are like these set of punks. They're like, and like in the broad sense, like in like not specifically Providence, but like punk in general. There's punks who are like the punks that are like keep punk dangerous, who try to break rules and just do like reckless shit. But then like, but most punks are just they try to respect others and not be too reckless for the most part.
We have a question from Central Inland Maine via text. Has Mark ever had a UFO or paranormal experience? So those are two pretty different, can be two very different things. So if you'd like to speak about both, please do.
Like 10, 15 years ago, I think I saw the ghost of Saddam Hussein in my house. I swear. That might have been a paranormal experience, but that's the closest thing I can think of for like a paranormal experience.
That is great. That rules. We got another question via text, this time from beautiful sunny Rhode Island. Please ask him to speak about his feelings regarding RIPTA and public transportation in Rhode Island and beyond.
Mm-hmm. RIPTA is like, it's good for what it is. It could be better.
Mark, I'm going to just interrupt you real quick. If you could start by explaining what RIPTA is for the out-of-state viewers.
RIPTA is the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, and it's a public transit system for all of Rhode Island. In a sense, that's good, but also it's like every route is like, for the most part, it goes from the specific town into Providence. But like if you want to really travel like within like certain towns, it's not as good. Like if you want to go from like a certain part of Warwick to another part of Warwick, it's kind of iffy. It's like it's very like radial system in the sense like where everything goes from the outwards into Providence. Like I'd like to see more routes that are like, I guess, like cross town routes where it goes from one side of the town to the other. Like even in Providence, like there's like, if you want to get to the east side from where I am, I have to go all the way downtown and then go all the way back up. But for the most part, it's like, it gets me where I need to go, but kind of slow-ish than taking a car. But
what do you think about the plan to get rid of the central hub in Kennedy Plaza?
I think that was purely like an idea created by the developers that own a lot of buildings at KP, because they see Kennedy Plaza as blight because they think there's a lot of homeless and drug addicts. And that's kind of fucked up. And as a system, Kennedy Plaza is fine as is. The issue with RIPTA is the fact that buses don't run frequently enough, and like there's not enough like direct routes to certain parts of the city. Like it takes a while to get to certain places because there's like not a lot of like you have to transfer at KP for most of the time, most of the connections you want to make, and that's not very efficient. Like the way you like make it more efficient is to have more crosstown routes that don't like end at Kennedy Plaza.
What is your vested personal interest in this subject? Is there one?
Mostly environmental and and I don't know if I would say economic, but like public transit exists to make transportation equitable for all, and when public transit systems aren't good, meet the needs for everybody, it makes it harder for like people who don't have cars, which are usually working class people, to get to jobs and to get around, and that's an economic burden for the working class.
Do you sometimes worry that certain individuals in town actually seek to subvert the efficacy of the system?
Yeah, there's a lot of like interests that are like very much pro car, like the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. They do not like RIPTA. RIPTA and the Department of Transportation are always clashing with each other. Like RIPTA doesn't want to get rid of Kennedy Plaza, but the Rhode Island Department of Transportation wants to, and it's like it's a push and pull kind of situation where sometimes not a lot of stuff gets done because of that.
Who do you think is winning at the moment?
Unfortunately, I think it's Rhode Island Department of Transportation because they have more power and say over a lot of like the funding of RIPTA.
Let's see. Do you study city planning in a university setting?
I don't. I thought about it, but it's like you have to get like a master's degree, and the way urban planning is like structured, it's very much like the people who have control over it are the people who have the access to education, and I kind of feel like that's like messed up in a way. Like there are like public input for like a lot of stuff. Oh, hey Eric.
Yeah, we
Yo,
have a
what's up?
caller.
2 Erics.
Yo,
Let
what's
me
up? How you doing, man?
Good.
get the homie in slot 3.
Yep. So yeah, I got a question for you. You're always talking about like sick places to get vegan food, you know, in Boston or wherever else, but like one, what are some of your favorite places, and two, what are your favorite vegan things to get to eat at New York system? All right, bye.
Bye.
Favorite places. I like Garden Grill, like Wildflower. Both are in the same plaza in Pawtucket off Hope Street. I like Asian Bakery has a really good tofu banh mi on Broad Street. What else? What was it? Veggie Fun downtown is really good, like Asian food. And in terms of like New York system, the only real thing I can think of that's vegan is like French fries.
Always a delicious option. Let's talk about your personal oh hell yeah, the Russian bots have finally entered the chat. Very cool. They're late. They're usually the first people to. Let's talk about your let's talk about your own music and bands that you do.
Yeah.
I know absolutely nothing about it. So everything you say will be absolutely novel, and I'd love to hear it in as much detail as possible.
I currently play in the band Boiling Point. We're just starting up with, like, during the pandemic, we had like a few members quit mostly because of just like they lost interest over the pandemic and wanted to a fresh start musically. We didn't really do much we didn't do anything in 2020 actually. But like in 2021 we got a new guitarist and a new drummer, and we're writing new songs and getting ready. We should be playing soonish. There, like March I think is the next show we're gonna be playing. Not announced yet, but it should be good.
Nice. Where do you play when you do play?
Um, we've mostly play in basements in Providence and like sometimes up in Boston. Um, there used to be a place that used to have like uh shows up called Dorchester Art Project. I don't know if you know Boston Hassle Crew. They used to book
Mm-hmm.
shows there, but I don't even know if they're what their Dorchester Art Project is doing now. Like for the most part, I don't see the usual people who book shows there doing anything there
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Um,
This is kind of a bogus question, but have you noticed? We'll get back to the last question I asked first in a minute, but I was just curious. Something crossed my mind. Have you noticed any trends among like the hardcore community people who dealing with isolation, like taking advantage of new technology to make art that within the hardcore context that like is basically just them hanging out alone and making the best of a situation?
like writing new music or like
Like new music or like doing new
yeah.
things that are still hardcore, but
Oh,
that
my
like they would
friend.
normally do it with friends, but they're just like stuck at home, etc.
Oh yeah. My friends from Montreal did this thing called Demo Fest, where people would write like demos over quarantine and then send them to them, and they did a live stream of all the demos, all one night, and like it was sort of like a benefit drive too. So you like donate money at the stream, and they gave it to like some indigenous organization in Quebec, and it was really cool.
Nice. Shout out Demo Fest. We got a question from Austin, Brazil, and it's Mark. What is the worst subculture?
Shoot.
Yeah, let's talk some shit.
Honestly, probably the rock against communism punks, because those are literal like Nazi skinheads. So I don't think it get any worse than that. So
Damn. Yep. We got a mention from Reba Mitchell in the chats. She wants her own personal demo fest. Folks, please get on that.
yeah, that'd be sick.
So yeah, man, Boiling Point is not your first band, I'm assuming.
Sort of.
Oh, it was.
But
There
was like a project I did with my friend Nathan and Raymond and Gabe, but we didn't really. It was called Jail Time, and didn't really get up and running too well. We had like 2 songs, and then we just sort of like ran out of steam.
Yeah.
But like the first proper band was Boiling Point for me.
Hell yeah, dude. Nice. Would you be into shouting out like some more zines and bands that you're into that are not only local but just like globally for just a second?
Yeah. Shout out Catalyst and Zipper and PCP and the Knives, and shout out what scenes can't think of any zines on the top of my head for some reason. But yeah, those bands are sick. Catalyst and Zipper, PCP and the Knives.
We got another question regarding your Swedish hardcore solo project.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that first. I mentioned that. It was called Shiv with my friend Chris Fabrizi. He wrote all the instrumentals, and I did the vocals. I wanted to do my own little my own little band project during it was around the time when Boiling Point wasn't practicing at all, but I wanted something to do musically, and I hit up. I started like posting on social media asking if anybody wanted to like be in a band, like do like a little like recording project with me, and my friend Chris, he was totally down, and he we banged it out and put out the demo. We played a show with like a couple live members, Vinny Bellows on bass, and my friend Ian on guitar, and Chris did drums. I did vocals.
Would you mind like trying to describe in words like the feeling of the rush of just getting so excited about a musical idea that like you just have to fucking like physically get up and make it happen in the world, and then like find some friends to fucking just like help you do it, and then you're just not going to be satisfied until you're like blasting at absolutely full volume for like, you know, hours on end?
Yeah.
If you could just like start with like the idea, and then just like if you could try to like break through to like the gig.
Yeah. It's like I have a lot of creative energy, and I like to put my creative energy into music. Um, and it's very fulfilling in a way. And I'm not sure what else to say about that, but
Like, where does it begin usually? Like in your imagination?
yeah,
Or,
usually.
or maybe
Yeah.
in a conversation with someone else, like a friend?
Usually I have these like random ideas that come up in my mind, like as I'm going to bed a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I end up tweeting them.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then I sometimes people like reply to me, and it's like, oh, let's start something musically. Let's jam or something like that. And then write music and then record.
Yeah. What is it like? What is that experience like for you? Is that like just it's very fulfilling? You said it's fulfilling.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
for me, making any sort of art is like the most fulfilling thing that I can possibly do. Like I get so like hyped whenever like a show I book is like completely booked, and like comes to fruition, or like I record something and I put it out and I play shows, and then I go on tour and stuff.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the car. We're like riding in 5th gear right now on the highway. I'm gonna turn the headlights off and put the car in neutral, and we're just gonna coast down the highway. I want to address the audience and say this is your, you know, last opportunity to engage with Mark, and I want to encourage you guys to ask him a question or give him a shout out or say hello. And Mark, if there's anything generally that you want to touch on conversationally that we haven't yet, you have the floor.
I think I feel the scene in Providence, it's I'm very optimistic about it. Despite this like COVID surge, I do see people starting bands, and new venues are coming around, and there's more cross pollination with other scenes. I see that the like some of the features of the old guard with punk scene are coming back. Like I see like more crossover with like the noise and electronic scene coming together with the punk scene and hardcore scene, and like how like Black Lace is like hosting like punk shows and hardcore shows and noise shows, and to get like, and despite the fact that me personally have had a lot of troubles finding venues to book shows at, like something always like comes to the rescue. Like I like tweeted about how I'm like my venue, my venue I had a show booked at, the Providence Turners. They sort of bailed on me because they didn't tell me they didn't have a entertainment license, and they were saying, "Oh, we can't have this show here because we don't do shows here." Right as I was like giving the deposit to them, and then like my friend Jack came to the rescue. It's like, "Oh, I can have the show at my house," and that was sick.
We got a question once again via text. What is the most inspiring aspect of life for you these days?
Just seeing like people younger than me just go all out and like really go for their passion in terms of music. Like I see all these young kids, they're like really going hard for like music and playing and like playing like one-off shows in New York and like putting out music. Like it just reminds me when I was like younger and really getting into the music scene.
Hell yeah. The youth will have their say. Is that like a thing that they said back in the 80s?
The kids will have their say.
Kids will have their say.
Yeah.
You got an anonymous text. Mark, you have great energy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And I'm really looking forward to keeping abreast of your Twitter activity. And who knows, maybe I'll personally make it out to a gig and mosh with the youngsters. It could be fun.
Oh, yeah.
But Mark, yeah, man, I want to thank you for taking the time. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
Have a good night.
You too.
Folks, this is a video of Dan Cashman performing live with one of those Spencer Gifts toys. Beautiful Dan Cashman, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're back, and I'd like you all to welcome to the show my next guests, plural, Ed and Lucy. Ed and Lucy, welcome on the show.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the program tonight. Greetings and what would you guys like to speak about tonight?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about? No, actually, I just thought, like, I don't know. We had no idea what to do. So I was just going to talk about, like, I've been in the scene for like 35 years and done lots of different things. So I thought maybe I'd just talk about that. But
that's a great idea.
We can have it take off in other directions, as I'm sure it will.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's do a biographical expose. And let's start at the beginning, Ed.
Under total control.
Okay. So I got started in like 1986, and my first project was a band called God Kicks You. Started when I was 16 years old, and me and a fellow named Jay Marlowe were going to high school, a Catholic boys' school called Christian Brothers Academy. So we formed this band, and it was really just kind of influenced by our love of like just some of the noise that was coming out at the time, like Einsters and Neubauten, Throbbing Gristle, SPK, all that kind of stuff. And I have a couple tapes here. So this is like really low technology here. Is that like rather than like bringing up JPEGs and share my screen, I'm just gonna like show you guys like tapes. So like this is like the first God Kicks You tape from 1986. That's probably backwards, but it says "Smile, we're all gonna die someday."
No, that looks right.
Cheery from the beginning. There's another one called "Why Should I Kill Myself When I Can Kill You?" Second tape. This one's got a really cheesy cover. It's really good. It's God Kicks You Sells Out. And then, of course, you got to have, the best of God Kicks You. So this is all like between 86 and 87. And we actually got thrown out of our high school temporarily for being in that band because we were hanging flyers in the hallway of school. With Jesus on the cross, with like a speech bubble coming out of his mouth, talking about how great God Kicks You was. They didn't like that, oddly enough. So it was never a school I was in that I didn't get kicked out of. That just added to it. But at least it was for good reasons. It was for artistic reasons, or autistic ones. I just can't.
Get that lit.
Inspired by noise, would you go on and describe some of the audio that's on those cassettes?
It was just really lo-fi, noisy ass shit, and it's funny because we got reviewed. One of our tapes got reviewed in Fact Sheet 5, the old zine that used to cover like the home taping scene. And they described it as a shortwave radio that turned on its listener. And they compared us to Smersh, which I hadn't heard Smersh at that point. It was many years later that I did. And it was actually a pretty apt comparison because I found out that besides being a two-piece from New Jersey, their modus operandi was they would once a week get together, record music, and they never played the same song twice. And that was actually God Kicks You's methodology, as we'd go into, Josh's garage once a week on Friday, stay up all night into the morning, just recording this stuff on basically a home stereo. So it's just very noisy, very disjointed kind of stuff. So just early foray into noise. And we were lucky because the guys who worked in the local record stores downtown actually became the band Monster Magnet. And before they were Monster Magnet, they had a little tape label called Cool Beans, and they put us out on that label. And it was this kind of scene that was in the Jersey Shore area, in Monmouth County, Red Bank, Asbury Park, Long Branch, that area. And it was just all people recording with each other and just creating these really absurdly named projects. very incestuous kind of little scene, as most of us have, been involved in at some point in our lives. And then, Monster Magnet happened, kind of changed their lives, and they went on into great fame and glory. And then I'm here. Where'd my partner abandoned me?
No, right.
Oh, okay.
I'm always right.
Lucy's wondering. Go ahead.
Where did things go for you? Because there was a, like you said, 35-year gap between that band and today.
Well, yeah. So then after that, I kind of got involved in, working on a fanzine called Ugly American that was actually grew out of a core of folks in that little Red Bank scene. And it was myself, Jay Marlowe, who was in God Kicks You, a gentleman named Greg Chapman, and Tim Cronin from Monster Magnet. And we kind of started this fanzine as a lark, and published it for about 10 years, I guess. So from like 88 to 99, that fanzine was published, and, got to the point where we were interviewing some pretty interesting people and getting distribution in like Tower Records. At the time, Tower was really, kind of pushing the zine angle. I actually have, again, I could totally, like put a JPEG on the screen, but I just kind of rather hold up these, disgusting, rotting fanzines from, the 80s. So this one's from, I guess, 89. And I guess that text might be backwards.
No, it looks right.
And actually, you can read it?
Yeah, the software switches it up for you.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So you can kind of read that name of folks, who we interviewed, which is kind of an interesting list of people, including My Bloody Valentine, who were on their Isn't Anything tour. So got to interview them. So it's, it's pretty cool to be, 18, 19 years old and interviewing My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah.
Of course, we did not get along with them. We were two punks from, suburban New Jersey, and they were these sleepy English pop stars. And, the tone of the magazine was very, defiant, angry, unhappy, sarcastic, but always funny. There was the meanness was tempered with, humor a lot of the time. And My Bloody Valentine just didn't get the memo, didn't get the joke, didn't think it was very funny, which made for, an unpleasant interview on their end, but a hilarious read. So it's really, really something else.
Yeah, so you were two New Jersey punks on the loose.
Yeah,
I want to hear more about that personally.
So let's see. I've got a couple more here to show you. So this is another issue of Ugly American. This cover was done by Steven Serio, who actually went on to like work with the Residents and stuff. So, we kind of worked with a lot of folks when they were just really kind of underground people, and then they kind of went on to greater fame. So it's kind of interesting to look at these now and see folks we were talking about, including, this one has a huge Peach of Immortality interview in it, which, this was, I guess, 1990. And folks don't know this about Tom Smith, rest in peace. He was very hated in the underground at this point. He had burned a lot of bridges and nobody was talking to him. And, we still love Peach of Immortality, and we thought Tom was a hoot, so we interviewed him. And he actually ended up becoming a writer for us. And that was a trend that kind of continued where as we interviewed folks and got along with them, Todd Ashley from Cop Shoot Cop became a writer for us. Tom Smith, Lisa Suckdog Carver actually got her start writing in our fanzine, and actually gave her the inspiration to start roller derby. She said she found her voice in the pages of Ugly American. So that was kind of an interesting footnote. Another thing we did was cover a lot of genres that weren't getting taken seriously in the underground zine world, where a lot of it was geared towards, genre stuff like punk hardcore and goth, and then the indie rock stuff. But folks really weren't paying attention to hip hop and death metal, which were two genres we were very into. And it wasn't just something we were paying lip service to with a stray review here or there. we really kind of put our money where our mouth was. So this is a zine, which I guess is from '91, where we talked to Morbid Angel. That was really cool. Monster Magnet, Skullflower. That was like Skullflower's first American interview. And then Upside Down Cross, which was Larry Lifeless' band from Kill Slug, also R.I.P., passed away last year.
I'm assuming that these fanzines that you're holding up are just the only copies you probably know about that exist, and these are long out of print, right?
They're very hard to get a hold of. Occasionally you'll see them pop up on eBay. But actually, there is some news in that Jonathan Borges of Pedestrian Deposit and Monorail Trespassing, I found out a couple of years ago, really huge fan of Ugly American. We played a show with him in, I guess, 2018. And he just got me aside and was like, I'm the biggest fan of the Ugly American. I used to buy it at Tower Records when I was a teenager. And, really informed me about a lot of music. And he wants to do a book. So there's plans in place to kind of publish the entire Ugly American run, which was pretty much 13 issues. So it's doable. It'll be big, but it'll be, because these magazines, although they were zines, stapled, they were kind of thick. We kind of went on a bit. But we're talking about doing a 2-volume set and, getting this published. And I do have to show this one because this is '97, and this is, where we started paying attention to, I guess, the Providence scene, which was popping at that time. So you see a really early Lightning Bolt interview, a Stove Boat, and also, I guess, is to live and shave in LA in this one? Lake of Dracula? No, we did do a Live and Shave in LA, but anyway.
This whole time, the whole enterprise was based in New Jersey?
Yes. Yep. Always New Jersey. And so, the Ugly American kind of went belly up around '99 for a variety of reasons. One of which that the publisher had a really bad series of headaches. And he went to the hospital and said, I've had these really bad headaches, worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And they're like, all right, well, let's take some scans. And they're like, well, you're having a aneurysm and we have to get you on the operating table right away. And he had a stroke on the operating table and, took a lot of the wind out of his sails in terms of being able to publish a magazine. So that kind of ended Ugly American.
Gotcha.
But, Greg's still around and kicking. I think the last time I saw him actually was on Tom Smith's Zoom birthday call that happened last year. We've all kind of stayed in touch with each other, and I think he's excited about, the possibility of this Ugly American book finally, coming out and getting a readership once again.
We got a quick question. If you could repeat where in New Jersey this was taking place.
It was in Red Bank, New Jersey. It was actually kind of like the psychological locus of it. As you're, a person in your 20s, you tend to move around a lot. So, we kind of moved around within New Jersey, town to town. For a while, we were living in South Jersey in the Pine Barrens in this house without heat, backed up against a graveyard, with no postal delivery and no mail service. That was a fun chapter. Just Red Bank, Central Jersey was really kind of where we, had our P.O. box. Let's put it that way. The P.O. box was in Red Bank for the entire life of the magazine.
What was the nature of the writing that you would do for the magazine at the time?
I was editor. So Greg was kind of publisher. I was editor. But also, kind of ran the gamut from, reviewing live shows, reviewing albums, conducting interviews, proofreading, making sure the thing got formatted properly for publishing and all that. So that was kind of my role at the zine.
Nice. Staying on track, logically, what's the next step on the path?
I guess the next step to talk about would be Frown, which was a band that Greg Chapman, the publisher of Ugly American, and I started in, circa '93. And, the concept behind Frown was that it would be an improvisational group, but rather than just the music being improvised, the members would also be improvised. So basically what we do is we book a show, and then we tell 10 to 15 people, hey, show up and play at this show with us. And then whoever showed up with their gear played. So, the membership of the group was anywhere from, 10 folks to 3 folks. And we would just kind of turn it out. And it was a real leap of faith, jumping into the void, which I find exciting. When you never know what's going to happen or who's going to show up, it really kind of charges the atmosphere, both for the players and the people who are watching it fall apart in front of them.
Did you have a particular axe at the time, or did you also just go for whatever was around?
I'm sorry?
Did you have a particular instrument that you used at the time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was generally the guitarist. We're actually both guitarists. And then, sometimes there'd be a DJ there. Sometimes there was a drummer, bassists, other guitarists. One time, Dave Windorf from Monster Magnet saw us and said it looked like, a line of guys at the rest stop at the urinal, because it was just 7 guys facing their amps. So, we made a pretty big din. And we actually put out a CD. This didn't come out until 99, but this was a recording we did. Davo of the Bunny Brains had a radio show on Pecan Stock in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he invited us up to play this fest. And the recording of it was so great that, we just years later were still listening to it and saying, all right, well, this has to get out into the world. So it's Frown's Wall Ghost.
What is a wall ghost?
A wall ghost is, what you see if you ingest certain chemicals. And things may start coming out of the walls at you. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like an appropriate title. The interesting thing about this CD is, the band name and the label name are actually stickers affixed to the outside of the wrapping. I'm actually going to open this up. This is exciting. Look at this, like show and tell. Mm. So if I open up this CD, band name and the label name peels away. Trash. So you don't have that anymore. And then what you have is a blank disc and this pretty digipack and a CD with no writing on it. So once you throw away that wrapper, you have no idea what this is. So that was kind of a packaging concept that was really stupid, but it gave us a lot of laughs. That was the main thing, was joy, bringing joy to the children.
I'm curious what kind of venues you guys would jam at.
There are, some local, places, Brighton Bar, the Saint, just local spots in Jersey where, as you and Mark were talking about earlier, when things used to be a little wilder and, people would book these acts that, book these shows that were really a bunch of different types of bands playing. So, it might be a hardcore band, a psych band, and then in the middle of it, you get this, confuse-a-thon of Frown. I know we played a warehouse space in Philly called the Milk Bar. And then, it actually was funny because it was actually, of bands I was in at the time, it was the one that was kind of the most successful. It was the most absurd and also the most one that people wanted to see and, kept getting booked in weird places.
We got a question from a viewer, and this might be jumping ahead, but it might actually pertain to the past. And the question is, Ed, who is the worst bandmate you've ever had?
The worst bandmate I've ever had is definitely Eric Greishaber. Okay. No, I'm kidding. Eric's lovely. Eric was the best bandmate. The worst bandmate I ever had. Jesus. That's a tough one. Mm-hmm. Because I try and work with people who are, kind of a similar mindset. And this, I was thinking about as I was talking about this, I found that a real thing that happens over and over again with me is trying to find people who either don't know how to play or are pushed into a situation where if they have to get outside of their comfort zone, and you know, or maybe have never been in a band before. So that seems to be like kind of a hallmark of projects that I've been in, is to try and introduce some chaos into the situation. And since I brought Eric's name up, I mean, Eric's a great example in that when we started Finished, he wanted to be in a project where he played bass. He had never played bass before. He'd been in bands, he played drums, never played bass before. And you know, I think that lends a kind of energy to the proceedings where, you know, someone's just kind of holding on by their fingernails, you know, trying to make this thing happen. You know, of course, you know, this is talking about history. Next year is going to be the 10-year anniversary of Frown. So after 10 years or, you know, 7, 8, however long we were steadily gigging, you know, he definitely was extremely proficient as the bass, as you know, having moved him into the ranks of Lazy Magnet.
True.
So, you know, we knocked our heads so you could have Eric. The form that he is today.
Primed and prepared.
Yeah. I feel like a politician. I feel like I totally did not answer that question at all.
Yeah, that was pretty elegantly evaded. You know, I feel like worst doesn't necessarily have to be a condemnation, especially for people who, you know, who have like a predilection for, you know, offbeat personalities. Sometimes the worst person in your life can like be a pretty deep creative charge.
Yeah.
And worst can encompass like a couple different spectrums.
I'm probably the worst bandmate of anybody who's ever been in a band with me.
There you go. Myself.
I have to take that title because I'll fight anyone who tries to obtain it.
Cool. We did take a rest stop break, but we're going to get back on the highway, and we just crossed the last exit for Frown. So what's next on our journey, Ed?
So, you know, next I actually entered a period where, you know, after Ugly American and Frown, I kind of felt like the Frown, you know, Wall Ghost recording was like, it taken music kind of as far as it was going to go, and it just burned me out. So I actually took 10 years off. I didn't really play music between 1995 and 2005. And by 2005, I was living in Providence, and, you know, I'd moved there in 99. And although I wasn't playing music, I was still kind of tangentially involved with the scene. You know, I was down at Fort Thunder. I'd known a lot of the Providence bands before moving here, just based on their coverage in the Ugly American. And, you know, but I was kind of quiet, doing other things, starting a family, having, you know, a couple kids and things like that. But then I got the itch again, and I guess things came back with National Grid, which started in like 2005. Which started as purely kind of electronic processing, you know, kind of act, and then evolved into a band with Dr. Sean Greenlee on bass and Will Sneap from Tinsel Teeth on drums. So it was kind of like a weird little super group that we played a handful of shows in Providence. That situation got kind of frustrating because Sean and Will are very busy guys. You know, Tinsel Teeth was playing constantly, always on the road. Sean is always up to, 1,000 different things. And, I kind of wanted a more steady gig, I guess. And that kind of led to the formation of Dead Air, which Dead Air was a project that I had with two gentlemen, Matt and Glenn from the Black Clouds, if anybody remembers that old garage rock band from Providence. So Black Clouds had fallen apart. They were kind of looking for somebody new to play with. They tried out a bunch of people and, couldn't make it happen with anybody. And, Matt and I were friendly, and he just said, hey, why don't you try jamming with us? And it was kind of like, hey, who put, this noise rock in my garage rock? And it kind of worked. We kind of didn't live for very long. We were only around for a couple of years. But we had a lot of really great shows, played with a lot of great people, and actually eventually put out a record on Load, which is this guy. And you know, actually, this record, God bless Ben McCosker, by the way. You know, he's a gentleman, a scholar, a man of his word. You know, he said he wanted to put out a Dead Air record. We broke up, and then he still put the record out. So, you know, I think this sold probably, you know, 10 copies, but it does exist. So that was, you know, kind of happy ending to that story.
Nice.
And then we get to Finished. So,
hold up. I got a question. I want you to describe your rig and your instrument.
Oh, okay.
From that era, because I know you're a collector. Have you always been? Talk to me about your gear.
I have not always been a collector. You know, matter of fact, I think I played music for a many number of years before I got my hands on what one would consider like a real piece of amplifier. You know, it's kind of like, hey, yeah, mic up this practice amp. You know, but and then even when I did get my whole hands on a Fender Twin, which was my, you know, weapon of choice back in the 90s, that was all I had. You know, it was all I could afford. I was lucky I got that. The guitar I play in Finished is the same guitar I played in God Kicks You in 1986.
Hell yeah.
That I bought for like $70 at the local, you know, music store used. And it's just seen me through thick and thin. I am kind of a collector now. I've amassed a wide array of amplifiers and pedals and things like that. But that kind of like, as I grew into a life where I had a space, you know, and, you know, kind of disposable incomes and things like that allowed me to pursue those things.
Nice.
That became more of a central figure. But I will say that Dead Air was around the time where I kind of landed on this configuration that I was kind of always obsessed with, which was running an amplifier through a 4x12, which is generally, you know, what people run guitars through, but then also a 1x18, which is just generally a bass amp. So, you know, running a very powerful head through a high-end speaker and a low-end speaker, kind of covering the entire frequency range. That was kind of the Finished secret weapon, as it inherited that. And we got into kind of an arms race for a while there, which still continues to this day.
Nice. Yeah. Did you get into making the frequency response for the different cabinets discrete?
No, it's all just really
everything.
You know, I'm stupid. You know, I can handle pedals. Push them, they turn on. Push them, they turn off.
True.
I turn a knob on the amp, you know, it gets bassier. I turn it down, it gets less bassier. So it's almost like my solutions are always, you know, very physical in terms of, you know, the speaker configuration drives the frequency range that you want to attain. Or, you know, a lot of people use octave pedals because they want to get into lower octaves. I would just detune the guitar string until it rattled. There's my octave pedal.
So we're cruising down 146 and we can see above the trees the outline of a city. And it appears that instead of Providence tonight, we see the band Finished.
Yes.
Take it away.
Looming large. So yeah, Finished formed, you know, I was kind of kicking around after Dead Air, you know, broke up, and Eric Greishabert approached me. He was interested in playing together. You know, he had been a fan of Dead Air and also National Grid. And he wanted to do something playing bass. And, you know, Dave Public was a mutual friend of ours and, you know, wasn't doing anything at the time, I think. So, you know, we all got together and it was a, you know, kind of a love connection where, you know, you have three people who have really Catholic music tastes in terms of listening to a really wide variety of things. And it really kind of informed, you know, kind of the direction the band headed in. And I don't know, that's, you know, it's weird talking about it because it's, you know, there was something special about Finished. You know, they really, you know, kind of probably definitely the most successful band I've been in terms of the numbers of shows played and the varieties of places played. And the fact that again, Ben McCosker deigned to put out our record, was another great stroke of luck. I also have a copy of it over here. Fantastic, come inside me, bro. I guess it's a special treat. You look at this record online on Spotify or YouTube, and you just see this, which is pretty good. But you miss the gatefold, which is a thing of glory in its own, which is basically everybody on the record. There's Dave, me, Eric, but Sean Halpin's there, who engineered the record, and then Gina Bootleg down there, who did vocals on a track for us. So pretty neat.
Shout out Gina Bootleg. We got a question from a viewer, Ed, going back to your family life.
Sure.
Can we talk about what it's like to have kids who shred? Are we passing the torch, or have they just torched every paradigm we've ever known absolutely of their own accord?
Yeah, I'll say that. I'm sorry?
That one.
Yeah, that one, the latter. It's weird that, yeah, both my kids are very into music. The older of the two is definitely encountered teenage success, and you may know them as Total Mom, who had some releases out on No Rent Records that occurred when they were 16 years old. This actually first tape came out. They actually toured with Total Mom, and definitely a real shredder. There was a lot of, it was funny talking to people at the time. I'd go to, a show or Noise Fest. And I remember being at Savage Weekend and somebody saying, is Total Mom you? There's this rumor going around that you're Total Mom. And I'm like, no, I had nothing to do with it. A matter of fact, the first time I heard it, I got sent, I got a text like, Dad, I started making noise tracks. I'm like, oh, cool, let me hear it. And got sent an entire album, that was, complete and, perfect and amazing. So, I had little to nothing to do with that. And then my other daughter, Reagan, is, always cooking something up. Actually, she was supposed to be my co-host here tonight, which would have been a hoot, because she rags on me nonstop in a very amusing way. But she, I expect, she'll be coming around the mountain with some of her own projects soon. She plays things very close to the vest right now, but I can see the volcano is starting to smoke.
I'm putting the QR code up on the screen, folks. Regan, if you wanted to tune in and chime in, of course, you can scan that with your phone. And I think Claire's still out in the control booth. And she'll beam you straight into the program. All right. Well, we did pull into downtown Providence, and I think we're going to park at the Providence Place Mall and climb the escalators up to the very top floor and watch a movie. Ed, what are we going to watch?
Oh, is this the clip I sent you?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, then I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Let's find out.
I guess it was more of a figurative question and less an introduction to an actual video.
No, we'll find out together.
Okay, we'll find out the film eventually. Look at that cat in the background. That's good cameo.
Yeah, that's Grendel. That's Lucy's soulmate. The coolest cat.
Oh yeah.
In this apartment, at least.
Good old Grendel from North Carolina.
Absolutely.
I guess we're going to Chatters.
Oh yeah, Chatters.
Not the actual movie theater. So that's good.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want to go into the theater.
We're moving.
Chatters definitely spend a lot of
Chatters, and we're going to meet everybody from the chat room at Chatters.
Excellent. Stay on message.
Cool, Ed. Where are we going from here?
Oh, we're going to keep going. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, around that time, around 2017, finished, had been going for a couple years, and I was partners with a woman I'm sure is familiar to everyone, the late, great Annapurna Himal Wagner, who's a member of Vulture and Mating Dance and, Taboo and, many kind of great wild bands of the era. And she had stopped playing music for many years, and I was kind of goading her for several years to get back into playing music, which she did. And we formed a project called Purism, which was the two of us. Anna Perta would play her bowed guitar, as was her fancy. And I would do electronics, and we'd make a big horrible sound until the power blew at whatever venue we were playing. And it's odd because when I was putting together this chronology and thinking about things, Purism was around for a little over 2 years, and it is one of those bands that was very experiential and felt like we were around for 10 years. I guess we went so hard at it, and did some tours, played a lot of shows, carted an awful lot of gear around, and I don't know. Yeah, it was just a very kind of intense experience.
Did it involve fire?
It did involve fire, yes. At one juncture, yeah. Finish was kind of always like a little bit of danger theatrics kind of production. Besides blowing the electricity everywhere we played. One of my instruments was a table saw for a long time, where I would actually start sawing in half pedals that actually had a live signal going through them, so you could kind of hear the sound of the pedals dying as I sawed into them. So yeah, there was always kind of this dangerous element. And then I guess around, when was this, 2018, yeah. Actually, I can show this little flyer. So this is Bad Timing Festival, Anna and I booked together in 2018, that happened in Providence with a lot of, great names in there, stars of screen and stage. Oh yeah, we have Lucy's providing the actual sample of a pedal that had been sawed in half. So actually at Bad Timing, I had this idea that very few people knew about. Pretty much Anna and I and a couple door folks, was a plan that, it was a festival, so there was 2 stages. I built one myself out of wood. And at the end of the night, as we were playing on one stage, I went to the other stage, doused it in lighter fluid and set it on fire. And boy, that was a real bonfire, man. That thing went up in smoke. Yeah, there was a fur carpet on it, and baby shag and big shag, not baby shag. Yeah, and it was funny because I was talking to Jacob Winans of Sibling about that show like afterwards, and we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, that was went well when it may not have. And he's like, oh yeah, I just realized how dangerous that was
just now.
Yeah, because I was kind of like standing in the fire at one point, and at one point like my glasses melted. It was it could have gone bad in 100 different ways. Dave, but it was, yes. And then Dave Public tried to put out the fire with some more lighter fluid.
A gallon.
that didn't work out well.
There was a backup gallon of lighter fluid in case it didn't go off, in case you didn't set it off properly with the first gallon.
It's always important to have a backup.
Absolutely.
So that's the story of fire and purism.
We've got comments from Inland Maine. With your 35 years of experience, do you see patterns of highs and lows in the scene? And where are we on that spectrum now?
There are definitely highs and lows, and the thing I've always tried to keep in mind is there's this theory. They've done studies about the brain, and they say that the music that you hear when you're a teenager really impacts you and stays with you. And it's why older people like to listen to oldies. It has to do with the way the brain develops and absorbs these sounds, and the ones that you hear as a teenager really occupy a real low level of your brain, and it makes it difficult as you get older for your brain to absorb new sounds. So always try and keep in mind that I'm impaired in that I'm an old fuck, so maybe I'm not in touch with what kids are really enjoying nowadays. But I feel like things are definitely not like they were in the 80s. I mean, I grew up in an era where every week I went to the record store and there was a new Big Black, Einsters and Neubauten, Butthole Surfers, Scratch Acid. Every week you just walk into the record store and there'd be this mind-blowing new Sonic Youth album or new Dinosaur album, and I think it's not just that it was great music that was largely ignored by the culture at the time, and I think those records stand up. People are still listening to them today. And things were a lot different culture-wise, but I think that there's been ups and downs. As a matter of fact, one of the ups I think was actually the Providence scene of the '90s, and I was very kind of grateful to kind of catch some of that fire in the late '90s, early 2000s, where there was a really fantastic mind-blowing scene centralized here, and also brought people in large quantities, and it was actually one of the more happening scenes of the 90s and 2000s. And if we want to microscope it down into Providence, Providence has had ups and downs. There's been periods where I've gotten really bummed in Providence and been like, there's no venues, and there's the bands that are playing I've seen a million times, and all of a sudden this fresh wave comes in, and I can think of like these different successive waves of coming after the initial Fort Thunder, and you had folks like Tinsel Teeth and R&B motherfuckers kind of carrying the noise rock flame. Then things started getting a little quiet. Then all of a sudden the Castlevania crew came in. And there was a really lovely period where there was Manton Avenue, and we had that complex that had, I can't remember all the names of the venues in there, but, Adam Borofsky's Paragon was in there, the Witch House was in there, there was Building 16 out in the parking lot. I remember Fridays or Saturdays, you could go in there and just wander from show to show. There'd be, 2 or 3 shows going on at the same time, and it would be a real nice kind of culture clash to kind of wander between and see what different people were doing. There's a lot of heavy activity, and nowadays I see a lot of the energy going out of the warehouse scene. I mean, there are, as far as I know, no warehouse spaces left. We have Black Lace, which is kind of like one of the few DIY spots left. Of course, kind of COVID's kind of playing into this situation that already existed, where there were, a handful of places left to play in town. You had choices. It was Machines with Magnets, AS220, Dusk, Black Lace. There's down to like a handful of places that you could play. And I find and I'm talking to people, and you kind of, as you tour, you make friends with people from around the country, and I started hearing that when people say, hey, how are things in Providence? Say, well, it's kind of dying down. There aren't a lot of venues here. It's not kind of lively as it once was, and people would just say, yeah, same thing here. There's no places left to play. It seems like something that isn't quite as important to folks anymore. But again, I always kind of like want to hedge those comments of mine, which, I'm a 50-year-old man. So maybe I'm just not finding the cool places to go, or, places to see bands.
We did get a message from The Nightmare Continues in the chat room saying that Providence has a whole new wave of young kids coming in. So
yes, yeah, that's the thing, is that that's why I say, I anytime I've kind of doubted Providence scene, there's always been a wave that comes in and, kind of reinvigorates the place. And, I do know it was refreshing. I think the last show I went to was at Black Lace, and seeing an awful lot of young folks there, was a really good, encouraging sign. So there's hope. There's hope for the future, I suppose.
I suppose so. Would you like to give a shout out to any living writers of literature or prose that you're a fan of?
Oh man, living writers of literature. That's a hard one. Who do I like? Who do I read? Who do I like that's not dead? Wow, that's really.
Moving on.
Yeah, that's a real stumper. That's a head scratcher. If you want to hear about dead writers, yeah, I'll talk all day about them.
Folks, I'm going to give you one last shot to mingle with our boy Ed. The Ed Sullivan show is coming to a close after all these years.
Yeah, this is it. As soon as this thing ends, when this show ends, I'm dying. That's it. That's all.
Oh, we got a shout out for Jake Stratton Kent. Yeah. Who do I like that's not dead is a good quote from the chats. The chats appreciate that a bit. It's a good Ed Sullivan quote. Is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you wanted to shed some light on for our viewers?
Is there anything I want to touch upon? Well, I guess I'll just say like 2 projects I'm working on right now.
Oh yeah.
Have been kind of like, I guess COVID pod related. Is that I started a project with Total Mom called Sky Power, which we recorded an album last year, didn't do anything with it, but we're kind of amassing another arsenal of gear together to try and once again take the title of loudest project in Providence. So, when the time's right and, things are popping again, we'll try and get out there. And then Lucy and I have a project called Negative Center, which is still in its very amorphous, figuring out what it is kind of stage, but, hopefully more to come from that.
Hell yeah, Lucy. Distinction of being on both seasons of the television program. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for letting me just like silently cruise along and disappear. Yeah. I haven't. We didn't really go over this.
There's a script.
There was a script,
yeah.
but we've covered it pretty much.
Shit.
Oh, I had a question. Who did the collage art for the original God Kicks You cassettes?
Who did the collage art? Yeah, it was kind of either myself or my partner Jay Marlowe. We were both kind of like into that. So he did the first tape, I did the second, he did the third, I did the next. So yeah, we kind of alternate back and forth. Again, cutting up little pieces of paper and sticking them together was a big hobby in the 80s.
Still going strong.
People still have scissors. That's a fact. Scissors and tape never go out of style.
Some machines are the best machines.
Do you have a Bandcamp page that people can peruse at their leisure?
Not actually. You know what? Where I will send people is if folks go to Instagram, and my handle on Instagram is Nihilist Movement, and there is a link in bio, Linktree. It's got links to a lot of different projects that I've talked about during this. So if anybody's curious about anything I brought up, they can go out there and peep it, check it, listen, watch, go crazy.
Yeah. Go crazy. Well, thanks, y'all. I'm going to cut you loose. It's been wonderful riding with you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. You've been a lovely host.
Oh, thank you. We do our best here. Folks, I'm going to say goodnight. But first, we're going to visit Acoustic Corner. This week's guest in Acoustic Corner is Colin Langinus. He's going to play a song for us. Next week, we've got Ryan Martin and local hip hop / metal punk drummer Vizzy. Not sure how he pronounces his name. We'll find out next week. Should be very exciting. Enjoy this acoustic corner.